disaster.
Test.
I'm
All right.
disaster. Oh, we're
We are
live.
back, and there are 25 people
crap.
waiting.
Live.
Take your
Wait.
time.
Did you tweet this?
No, I was just 25 people are actually waiting just to see Damien.
Yeah.
Oh, Damo,
Open. Yes.
you know that I got a mean note from our boss today?
Well, you mean like every other day? Like what's
Yeah,
mean?
well, yeah.
You mean
like
it's a Tuesday?
It's a Tuesday. No, so Scott Hunter,
Yes.
joyful individual that he is,
Yes.
sent me a note saying he was hurt
Okay.
that I did not text him so that he.
Oh yes, about the SNES.
So that he
I
might.
told him that you texted me, and then he was.
Wait, did you tweet yet, Scott? Or do I need to tweet this?
No, there's no value in anything.
Because he feels like that he's the only reason that you got a Project Scorpio edition of the Xbox
Is he
One.
literally hurt? Do I need to give him my SNES?
So when I met him today, he was already salty about something else. So it may just be like a salty by association thing, like he's just in a bad mood. I don't know.
All right, I'm just going to tweet it.
We're just doing holes for ourselves now.
Do you think? Okay, let me tweet it.
Oh, no.
So my question is, should I
give him yours?
Should I just give him mine? Will that help my career?
I think your career is doing pretty fine as it is already, mate.
Well, I don't know.
What's left? Like you're not going after Goo's job, let's be honest.
Not what?
You're not going after Goo's job, let's be honest. So what's left? And you're not going after Hunter's job.
That would require a work ethic.
Exactly.
And
like I think you and I have both reached the top of where we can, given our current work ethic. Given I've just been out for 4.5 weeks, and all I can think about right now is being back on the beach I was on last week.
Did you
crab and fishing and kayaking and drinking beer?
Did you see my tweet about my schedule?
Yes. But it's funny though, because my calendar actually looks like that with lunch appointments put in there, and some of them
they get longer and longer the farther the week.
Oh, that's a good idea. Lunch appointments.
I have a 12 to 5 lunch on Friday. And here's an interesting thing. So you were on vacation. How long were you gone?
This was the longest vacation I've ever taken. I was out all of August. So I got back yesterday. I was out for a solid 4 weeks.
So I can't even get my head around that.
It was magnificent.
So I went
out all of December a couple of years ago, didn't you? Yeah,
but the problem is when I go on vacation, it's work.
What does that mean?
I was camping, right? So I went camping.
Sorry. When I go on vacation, it's work because I was camping, not because you were working.
No, let's be real. I was camping with 2 little boys and my wife. God bless them all. And I had to carry everything. I had to carry 4 bikes. I had to go and install a trailer hitch. I had to put the bikes on the thing. I had to pump the bikes up. I had to maintain all 4 bikes, fix their chains, fix their tubes. You
just want to be back at your desk.
Every single day, I had to make the food, and I had, it was work. I need a vacation from that.
Yeah.
And I was telling my wife about, why are you shaking your head at me, Damien?
Like I'm playing the world's smallest violin for you right now. I was like we were talking literally about taking vacations, and I said it's the longest one I've ever taken. And I admitted the fact I worked in the middle of it. I went and taught a 2-day workshop and gave 3 talks back to back at NDC Sydney. Blah 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 blah. It was still the longest I've been away.
That sounds like a great vacation.
It wasn't. That part sucked. I mean,
really, I like that part.
To Australia just sucks. It's a long way away. It's so far away.
Yeah, I'm going to New Zealand which is effectively like tiny Australia.
Yeah, well, I went via New Zealand, so I did that. Yeah. Then I went to Australia as well. But going to the beach last week was magnificent. So.
I told my wife I want a new kind of vacation. I have never had a vacation where I get to sit around and play Xbox until I'm sick of it.
Yes. Isn't that
just what I want?
Being sick, too sick to go to work, but not sick enough to not play Xbox?
Exactly. I told her I wanted to take a vacation where I could like go and sit at McDonald's and use their Wi-Fi and play my 3DS. Yeah. And she's like, how is that vacation? I'm like, oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Like, if I could have just play games, oh my goodness.
I mean, the sad fact is I pre-ordered my Project Scorpio Edition Xbox One X, right, while I was away, just so that I can play Forza in 4K. All I care about is Forza 7 in 4K on my ridiculously large TV.
That is going to be good. Oh, did you hear about the migration tool?
The truth is, though, if I probably won't even play it this year. I'll get it all, and then my son will play, and I will never actually play.
Damo, did you hear about the migration tool and preparing with the textures? You don't know about this?
No.
Okay, so Forza and Tomb Raider and there's like 100 games all have additional texture packs to enable 4K.
Of course, yes, the enhancements. As they call
Right.
them.
They can. I believe there's going to be a tool that can preload those textures so that you'll be ready. There's going to be a tool, a 4K migration tool that you'd run on your Xbox One that would preload those textures to the external hard drive so that when the One X shows up.
What external hard drive? I don't have an external hard drive.
Okay, so here's a little tip for you.
Okay.
Plug an external hard drive into your Xbox One.
Why?
Move all your big games over onto it. Run this tool. It will preload the several hundred gigs of textures you're going to need. Then when the Xbox One X comes out, you can just plug the external thing and you have to wait. Otherwise, you're going to be downloading textures for days.
I got gigabit internet.
I'm just saying. I got 100.
So I tell you, it sounds amazing. Having to run a tool on my console sounds far too much like I'm leaning over to the side of being a PC gamer. I just can't do that. I'm sorry.
The other thing that they are doing,
solve problem.
See, then I'll end up being like John. And
the other thing that they're doing is making it so that you can do peer-to-peer cross-loading, so delivery optimization of gaming.
Oh, that's cool.
So when your 4K comes out, leave your other Xbox on, and the games will come sideways. That way you don't have to re-download them all.
Oh, kind of like Windows.
I don't know if you can see my eyes rolling, but they're like rolling. This is all so easy on a computer. It's like this is what computers do.
Yeah,
and they also
pay
restart
7 times the price to do it, and no
interest
into
in
their TV.
PC gaming.
like, it's just different, dude.
PC gaming sucks.
And this is the world's best controller right here in the world. None of this Xbox 4 little.
Man.
Which is the button? I don't know.
I have a steering wheel and pedals in a chassis. That's the best controller for my.
I also have a chassis.
Yes.
I just
What do you call them in America? A chassis?
It's this little kiddie seat. I don't know what you call it. It's like I got it at a garage sale. You told me to buy it. It's the thing with the. It's like a welded thing.
Oh
right?
yeah, I upgraded from that to like a proper racing seat.
Oh, proper. Excuse me. Okay. What was the other thing I was going to tell you? Shoot.
Oh, Age of Empires in 4K. Yo, go.
Check this out. I've been here 10 years.
No.
This month.
Hunter ticked over 10 years.
So Hunter, oh yeah, that's the thing I wanted to ask you. Hunter texted me that he's mad. Was he really mad when you talked to him?
Yes.
Like he was legitimately upset.
He was upset. I'm not saying it was that he was upset because of what you did, but he was upset.
But it was part of it. It was probably part of it.
And he mentioned what you did. So whether those things are correlated, I don't know, but they did happen at the same time.
Should I just give him the SNES because I already have my Hyperkin?
He actually butt dialed me today, and all I heard was like tons of cursing and then Hanselman thrown in every now and then. So I don't know. Try your own.
Such a problem.
Cursing. NES.
Right.
Did it for Damien. Cursing.
He said he actually put hurt in parentheses.
You know how much we like teasing you, and so he just does that to tease you. Okay.
Hang on.
I'm looking for the focus.
Wait for a second.
There it is.
Wait, look. Where's the thing? Got the thing. How do you think? Why can't you text the thing?
I don't know.
Look.
We just saw it. Yeah.
How about
I
if
helped
I
you get a
share?
Scorpio, and you didn't help me get a SNES. Hurt.
I'm intent on sharing some community links at this time.
All right. Well, the question to the
We have
community
spent
is.
15 minutes talking
Everyone
about
feels
this.
sorry for Scott.
All right,
That's
fine,
what this is.
whatever. You guys suck. Here's the question to the community while John shares the links. Do I give Hunter my Super Nintendo Classic pre-order?
Yeah.
That is the question.
I
Go.
think you should just anyway.
Go ahead.
Right. Okay. Nobody's paying attention to this because they're voting currently on that, I'm sure. First of all, 2 from Hisham. One, I like this one especially because he linked out to a Code Conversation interview I did with Jimmy Campbell talking about the IIS Administration API, which is an unknown awesome gem in IIS. It's a REST interface that allows you to manage your IIS stuff. You go to manage.iis.net and you can administer, you can upload files, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. So he dug into it, wrote a blog post about it. Very cool stuff. So I recommend reading this blog post, and maybe if you click on the first link and watch a video, you learn some more about it. But very cool stuff. I was totally unaware of this before. Have you folks used this?
Yes.
Huh?
This is the REST API that Sarab made last year.
Yeah, and so they've built more stuff out on it. They've got this whole plug-in architecture on .NET Core, like
okay.
really cool stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, so there's that. Then another from Hisham, and this is just kind of a question. I thought, I don't know, Damien might jump in here, but he's asking why we don't have a tag helper interceptor, and he doesn't want to have to. It's a subclass, a tag helper. He would like to do something similar to like a tag.
do.
Okay.
We have a. Oh, okay, that's different. So we have tag helper initializers. Does he mention those?
Likely. No.
So we have a thing called tag helper initializers that you can put in DI, and then they get a chance to operate on the actual tag helper instance, like while the page is rendering, before the tag helper itself runs. So like the tag helper gets constructed, the tag helper interceptor gets to run over it in order to set properties usually, and then the tag helper runs. What it doesn't let you do, it's not a pipeline. You can't like get in the processing pipeline, so you can't like run on process. But the thing is, with the code I'm looking at here that you're showing, because it has generated code, we don't have anything easy in Razor today for doing runtime code generation manipulation, like the old control builder interceptor stuff that I was the PM for. So control builder interceptor, we added in .NET 4.5 or something, I can't remember, it was too long ago, specifically to enable crazy scenarios, and no one uses it. But it was a really, really cool idea, and we definitely want to enable code generation extensibility for Razor, but it's a huge work item. But it is required in order to enable certain things. So, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, and Hisham's on the chat too. It seems like that's exactly what he's looking for. So, cool.
So to be clear, was that a valid question, or was there a thing that can solve his problem?
No. So it's a totally valid question in the sense that there are lots of opportunities and things that you could solve if you are able to easily programmatically participate in Razor code generation. Remember, that's the phase after we take your .cshtml file and then we emit the C# code, and before we compile it into an assembly that then actually runs as your page or your partial or your view. That stage right now is difficult. You basically have to plug into the Razor host. You can get involved today, but it's non-trivial. In web forms, that was a first-class thing. Like controls had these things called control designers and control builders that enabled you as a control vendor to participate in code generation, so that when your control was used, you could affect the code output of the ASPX file, which enabled incredibly powerful scenarios like variable declarations, so that you could have a tag helper. What you were able to do, for example, you have a tag helper, and then that tag helper could emit a new variable that only existed in the scope of the block, the Razor block inside that tag helper. So the classic canonical example is a for each tag helper that emits an item variable that you can refer to inside that the HTML block and nowhere else. You can't do that today. It's just not a thing you can plug in via a tag helper. You could plug that in at the Razor generator level by like basically partying on the parser and the code generator, but that's complicated and difficult, and we don't really have a good story for it.
Cool. All right. Nicholas Blumhart, an update on Serilog for ASP.NET Core 2. So the main thing here is much more deeply integrated. So it basically like plugs in as the logger. And so he shows kind of the simplicity in logging it, and then he calls out here. So it basically replaces the built-in iLogger factory, so that it's by turning on Serilog, it's integrated all throughout your application. So pretty cool stuff there. So this is from Ryan Southgate, and he's got a two-part series digging into Webpack integration. So several different ways, to enable this. Webpack's kind of the hot, bundler packager or whatever thing for front-end code these days. And so, an easy way to do that, this is built into the templates with like JavaScript services and stuff. That's kind of the simplest way, but some people like to go through and kind of hand code this and set everything up. So here he goes through and shows how to do that.
Just to be clear, I'm only seeing this for the first time, but I just want to make some distinctions here. The stuff that we have in the SPA services isn't just in the template. Like we built, or Steve Sanderson in particular, as part of our team, built a Webpack integration story for ASP.NET Core that utilizes the JavaScript services stuff, which includes middleware and build tasks and all that type of thing that, like I said, properly integrates in the ASP.NET Core kind of build timeline and publish timeline and dev timeline. this is not, this article doesn't seem to just be this is how you get them to work together. He's actually says in the very first line here that a soon to be real world core and Webpack integration. So is he actually building another type of integration product or library like we did in the spa services stuff, and this is an alternate? Or is
it's a 2-part series, and I haven't seen where he got to that yet in this one. This is more how to configure it. So this is just basically running it at this point. So I guess we'll have to watch. Yeah, and like you point out, that JavaScript services, there's a good amount of work gone into like watching like this virtual file system stuff, as you know, for hot module reload and all this stuff. There's a lot there, so that's definitely what I would use personally. But I like to.
The big thing with Webpack is that it works best, really, from my understanding and my experience with it, in spa applications where you have because Webpack's big claim to fame is that it can basically scan the dependency graph of your application. I don't mean like the packages you depend on. I mean you point it at an HTML file, and it determines that file loads this TypeScript file and this CSS file, and that TypeScript file loaded this JavaScript file, and that one loaded this one, and it basically done this font file and these images, and it builds an entire asset graph like automatically. And then you plug in processes for each of those kind of nodes and links, and then you can like configure it for different environments and different invocations to do different things with different processes. It's not like gulp and grunt and like traditional scripting where you just have like a task that says find everything that's a JavaScript file, run it through this minifier and do this. Like it's fundamentally different. And so I have found it doesn't really work. It doesn't really lend itself well just to server-based applications where you have like jQuery and like the type of thing we have in our normal templates. Configuring that with Webpack seems like the wrong place to use it, which is why we haven't done it. But it makes total sense when you have like a root.htm file, which then like loads Angular and the world, right? And then like roll it out. So.
I went to a 1-hour talk Jonathan Creamer did once on just configuring Webpack, and it was like digging into advanced scenarios. It is a very complex, deep thing where you can have like somebody could just specialize in Webpack and be busy, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot there. Okay, going to something.
Sorry, doesn't Sean from Webpack work at Microsoft now?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Sean Larkin.
Sean Larkin works here now.
In which team?
I think he works on Edge, F12 tools. So we should direct Webpack questions to him to him.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool.
All right. Dominic Beyer has updated ASP.NET Core security samples to .NET Core 2. So just I always like to point out when we've been, big popular community things that are as they're updated to the newest thing. So that's good to know about. Next on the updated stuff, this is Giraffe. So Giraffe is a ASP.NET Core for F#, and it's fully functional. So we've called that out on the show before, and it's also updated for ASP.NET Core 2.
Nice.
So neat thing. This one is an oldie but a goodie. I stumbled across this working on a website this past week. This is Mads Christensen and several others of us reviewed it and chipped in on stuff, this web developer checklist. And this is, a nice thing where you can go through and check stuff off. Here's all these different, resources as you're developing an application. Here's stuff you should look at. The thing that I noticed on this is that he's had a Chrome and a Firefox extension for a while, and it's also available as an Edge extension now too. So out on the store. So
respect to him for keeping this updated for the last 5 years.
Absolutely, and this is really like quality stuff. This is you just go bing, pop it on, and it'll analyze the site and say, it'll give you a quick readout of stuff you need to fix.
It'll go what?
Bing. Bing. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Yes. It'd be neat if it did. Finally, so this is Glenn's mega post on some ASP.NET Core 2.0 features that were not. This was stuff that was not in the release post. This is additional features and stuff to know about, and he kind of drilled down on a lot of stuff. So talking about the meta package, runtime store, web host builder, just several important things here. So
and this is number one. We plan to do some follow-up ones with, there are other features, security and identity, and a bunch of stuff that got fixes and they got improvements and features as well that haven't been spoken about any of these. So
very cool.
Yep.
So required reading, good stuff.
Yes, definitely required reading.
All right, that's it for me.
Ooh. So yeah.
Sorry, I was
I
talking.
forgot how this works.
I was
I'm sorry.
talking and the thing like was off.
Back to the NES.
I have a question.
Hmm.
What is this about, Damien?
I was gonna mention that. So that literally got posted, what, 20 minutes ago? 30 minutes ago now?
Yeah, and it was interesting because someone in the comments was like, "No one's talked about this yet."
Yeah, we haven't got it yet. So Brian Hauer, who runs the Tech and Power benchmarks, they just posted a preview 2 of round 15. And our stuff since the last run has been upgraded to ASP.NET Core 2. And you can see the numbers have gone up.
What does this mean, though? That's not comforting.
What's that? Oh, that's been there for ages. Let's not. Yes,
I
agree.
Like warm up and
no. There are latent timeout errors that we hit under these load tests that we have forever, and we have never been able to track down what causes them. Our hope is that when we flip to I think the root cause leads us down to libuv and something that we're doing there. I mean, let's be clear. How many requests were served in this? 2 million multiplied by 15 seconds. So a metric crap ton of requests were served, and 1,600 had some type of timeout. In this type of ridiculous scenario. So like it would obviously be better to be 0.
No, yeah, I mean, no disrespect. I'm just saying.
Of course. And it's not that we're ignoring it, it's just that we're ignoring it. So hopefully those will go away when we move to the socket implementation. We haven't been able to trace it down.
Oh, can you say something about that?
I've talked about it before. We have a second networking. One of the things we did in Kestrel in 2.0 was abstract out the networking sort of layer of Kestrel so that it's not so tightly coupled to libuv. And we have a second implementation which uses system.net.sockets,
right?
Which is not the default, but is available as a package or code or whatever, which isn't quite as fast yet, but uses system.net sockets, so it doesn't use libuv anywhere. And then one of the Red Hat engineers submitted a Linux native implementation that uses, I think, EPOL directly, which has some advantages rather than using an abstraction library like libuv. So we basically did a bunch of work in Kestrel 2.0 to enable swapping in different parts of Kestrel, whether it's the HTTP parser or the network stuff or whatever, the scheduler.
So how would you decide? Like, let's say this new thing comes out, and now there's Kestrel, and there's 2 things you can put in front of it, and there's 2 things you can put behind it. Would it be a pick one or the other, like you pick the minivan when you're taking the kids to soccer?
I mean, the reality is,
or would we swap one out and say that's better?
No, it's the vast majority, like the overwhelming majority of people will always just use what we use by default. So at some point we will change to the sockets-based implementation as our default rather than libuv implementation. And at that point, it'd be pretty. The libuv stuff will have a couple of features that the sockets one won't. For example, the support for Linux pipes when running behind Nginx, which is lower latency and faster throughput when you're doing reverse proxy behind Nginx than using sockets. So there would still be some advantages to doing it, but we will at some point change to the socket implementation just so we're using .NET bits all the way up and down the stack and getting the benefit of that. But beyond that, we don't really expect people to have to go into a menu and decide, oh, well, because my app does this and this, I'm going to use this.
I see. So there will be one that is better, and you'll pick that one, and that'll be the one.
Yeah, I think it's similar. It's really no different to how even in WinSock today, there are different layers of the WinSock API where you can choose extra flags and features, and whether you're using, and they some of them come with different programming models. They're ultimately all WinSock, but once you open a connection with a certain amount of flags, you have to then go and, like Rio, for example, you then have to call a bunch of other APIs in order to use that socket that you created. And they're all for different scenarios. Some are lower latency, but have more memory use up front, et cetera, et cetera. So
clearly I wasn't ready to decide to use .NET Core in production until Trumpet WinSock was available as a stack.
Indeed, or IPX XPX. Because who wants an IP address? I want the token.
Until Token Ring is available, I refuse to be an early adopter.
So we did that work. So anyway, so that plus a whole bunch of the work that happened in the .NET Core itself, a lot of it thanks to Ben and other people in the community. We've seen our numbers jump from 1.7 million to over 2 million requests per second in plain text for this current round. So that's good. The other thing we're working on right now is the team has set up a bunch of automation to run the Tech and Power scenarios on Azure VMs automatically as part that are the same size Azure VMs that the Tech and Power group uses for their cloud benchmarks. So when they run the benchmarks, they typically do one run on a cloud set of VMs from Azure, and they do a physical. They have physical hardware, and you can flip between them to see the results. So we've emulated that environment in Azure, and we automate that. So at every check-in, we rerun these scenarios, and we have a public Power BI dashboard that you can basically just see. So you can, the idea being that it should be much easier for people to replicate the results that we get on our check-ins on the same hardware the Tech and Power uses, using the same scenarios the Tech and Power uses, which is all goodness. So yeah, that's happening as well, and I believe we link to it now from our benchmarks repo. So ASP.NET/benchmarks. I think we have a link to that Power BI dashboard now, and we're going to enhance that with more scenarios and things moving forward. Yeah, so that's goodness.
So you mentioned this is like part of the integrated thing, like as far as you've been talking over the years, like CI and all, like as you're developing. What's we're working up the stack, right? We've got the plain text, and then there's other tests in here, like there's the data query stuff, there's JSON serialization, all that. Are any of those like a focus for like a next?
So they're all in there. So in the new public dashboard, we run all those things. We run them for they're all running on Linux to match again what Tech and Power does today. And they're only using a single database right now, which is Postgres. And then what I've asked them to do is add SQL on Linux next as well as another variant. That's one area today where we are lagging a lot, is in our SQL in our data access layers, which are, we're going to have to do a bunch of work with the community and the various database sort of providers for .NET Core moving forward if we want to perform well on those benchmarks. The HTML generation, we're not too bad. But obviously, there's always work we can do there. So we're moving up the stack, and so the next one on the list is JSON. When you move up from plain text, the next one you see is JSON, and we drop out of some of the good results we have in plain text there. So yeah, I mean, there's still plenty of work to do, but we have to balance all of that with features and all that sort of stuff as well. So
cool.
Yeah, that's all good. Yeah, so I was where was I? I was in Australia, as I said, doing NDC. I was there technically for NDC Sydney, but I went there for a couple of weeks and saw family, took my family with me and saw family down there. And then I just jumped up to Sydney for 3 days to do, we taught our workshop as we do. So this was the second iteration of the workshop that John and Fowler and I taught in Oslo this year, which is the app building workshop, where we build the very useful conference planner app. Although I did it with Barry Dorrans this time, which was very different to doing it with John and David.
A bit more swearing.
Actually, Barry was very good. He let me do
Can't win them all, though.
So no, it worked out well. It was interesting. Obviously, doing things like the Azure demos in Australia was very different. And just hearing from Australian customers about, these Azure features are great, but the latency kills us. Or these Azure features are great, but data sovereignty is such a huge problem. It's so important to a lot of our customers that we can't use those features because they're not in the Azure data center in Australia yet. So it was great to get some of that type of feedback face to face when working with customers in different countries. So that was good. And then I gave a talk on Razor Pages, which I know, Scott, you've been waiting for me to do. And I think I did a fairly good job of convincing the people in the room, at least, that it was worth their while to check out. And I've seen I've seen some good positive feedback on Razor Pages in the community since 2.0 has come out, which is good. Well, there's a couple of wrinkles that we really want to clean up in 2.1. Which we've started planning on. Things like attribute writing, people really expect it to work, so we're going to do the work we're going to give up on some idea that we thought had prevented us from using attribute routing. We've decided that attribute routing is more important, so we'll do that in 2.1. And then there's a couple of other things like doing validation attributes directly on the page model, which is akin to putting validation attributes in line in your action methods on the parameters, which also is not supported today. We're talking about supporting that in 2.1 in both those scenarios. So that would be good. Other ones like supporting an initialization method in page models, so that you have the handlers, one that runs on get, one that runs on post. You could have and then you can have your custom handlers that are like on get blah or on post blah. But there's no common method you can put code in that's async that runs for all of those, right? As part of the model. You'd have to just do that yourself and call out to them all. Or you'd have to write a custom page filter that calls that or something. And again, we decided not to do it because we didn't really have a scenario for it or a customer ask for it while we were developing it. But now we're seeing people build stuff. They're saying, where do I put code that runs, whether it's a post or a get? You can't put it in the constructor because it's not, because generally you're doing stuff that might be async, so you can't do that. So we might end up adding an initialize method or an onload method or something that always gets called no matter what. But today you could simulate that with a page filter. A custom page filter would simulate that for you today, which is okay. What else? What else have I seen in there? Anyway, so that went well. So hopefully that video will be published soon, and we'll have that 1 hour sort of introduction to Razor Pages talk, which we can point people at least to get the spiel, and for me to kind of do that walkthrough demo where I do a basic CRUD sort of scenario with Razor Pages, and kind of people can see how the concepts map that they were already aware of, but how they map to the Pages model and what advantages you get. So that's cool.
I got to say, just personally, like I'd worked on that workshop with you and all that, but deving on my own recently, like it really is powerful to be able to say, like, this is a place where MVC works, where I want to be able to work, you know, like, or at least I'm more comfortable with it. But there's plenty of things where it's like, look, I just want some HTML, maybe with a little bit of, you know what I mean? Like, it's more page focus. It was great to be able to just mix the two together. MVC
and like,
Pages.
we purposely made it so you can mix them together. And as I said, we made Razor Pages the default now. And you file new ASP.NET Core 2, the default sort of template uses Razor Pages for all the sort of template craft. And if you choose authentication, you get all the admin pages in Razor Pages. And there's a different template that will give you the same content, but using sort of traditional model view controller separation.
I ran into one issue, and I can take it offline if it's a stupid PEBCAC issue, but I was using both. I had a shared layout that both my pages and my MVC views were using, and calling a partial. The partial was rendering fine from the MVC, but not from the page. Do I need to like?
Where was it? Where was the partial?
It was in the footer of my layout.
No. Sorry, where was the file?
It was in the shared. It was views shared.
Should work. So the way we do the integration is that the pages view path. So like when you say to Razor, please render this partial, you just give it a name. You don't give it a path in a .cshtml. You say the layout is this layout name, and you don't give it a path or a .cshtml. There's a hierarchy of searches we go through. Like we'll look for this file here or here or here or something named this. In views, there's a well-established paradigm of how we do that. We walk up for layouts, then we look in a shared folder at each layer and all sort of stuff. In pages, we don't have the idea of a shared folder, although we're probably going to bring that back because that's something that a lot of people are just expecting to work. But we will look in the views folder again for that integration. So the idea is that the assumption is that if you're going to be doing shared assets between views and pages, you'll put those shared assets in the shared folder in the views folder. So pages will find those, but we don't do it the other way around. Okay. So you should be able to have your page set its layout to the layout in the shared folder in the views folder, and then have that layout file render a partial from relative to itself, in the sense that just say render this partial by this name, and then it should find it in the same shared folder, and then that should all work when you call through from pages. If it doesn't, then it's a bug. So
okay, all right, cool.
A whole bunch of people talking in here. I wanted to quickly go off topic. We've been talking about the 8th gen CPUs that are coming online very soon, and since then it's all been announced. Dell has already announced that they're going to update their XPS 13 with the new quad-core Ultrabook CPUs, which I think is just fascinating. It's happened so much quicker than I thought it would, which means that like literally an XPS 13, which is much smaller than this, is basically the XPS 15. It's going to have a quad-core, and they reckon it's 45% faster for compute tasks in the same thermal envelope and the same power use, at the same price as like the one that was out a few months ago. So if anyone is coming up for a new laptop soon, I would wait, if you're looking at an Ultrabook, until the vendor that you're interested in, whether it's Microsoft or HP or whoever, refreshes their current line with the new 8th gen stuff that's coming out like now, basically between now and October, because the improvements are going to be astronomical if you've got any type of multi-threaded workload. So
wow,
there you go. Moving forward, it's nice to see a good bump in performance in mobile CPUs, which we haven't seen in quite some time. So shall we answer some questions, because it's been such a long time?
Yeah. Let's do it.
I will just say that the team's working on 2.1 planning at the moment. We're sort of doing a very high level internal sort of private planning round at the moment. We're not really at sort of the open feature discussion, how does this work thing. It's more the strategic product level planning. So we tend to do that behind closed doors, which I hope is obvious to people as to why. And then very soon we'll work on the migration of, once all that's signed off by directors and people who have power to do that, we'll move from that phase into the more, well, here's what our roadmap and our plans for 2.1 look like, and down to the feature level stuff. And then that's when people can start they can hopefully give us all the feedback about how they want that feature to actually work and what the APIs look like and and all that type of stuff. So yeah, that's what we're doing right now.
Cool.
Questions?
Well, we got a few here. Codename Unknown 1. That's a nice name. Okay, Razor IntelliSense for .NET Standard Core class libraries for email
I added
template.
that to the planning list an hour ago.
Nice. All right. And his second question, or her second question, can I use Razor pre-compilation for a non-MVC core project? Ooh, interesting.
You mean,
You know, like you can do MVC pre-compile views.
Yeah, so you can. It's just that it's all automatic in the Web SDK. If your project doesn't use the Web SDK, as in like the SDK property in the project node in your MS build file doesn't say SDK Microsoft.NET Web SDK.
Right.
Then you have to bring it in manually as a tool, as a package reference, and then set the properties that turns it on and everything and calls it.
It follows from the first question, which is they're doing email template.
Explicitly, what I wrote is that for 2.1, we need to actually go through and experience what it means to, if I move my Razor assets out of my web project and into a different project that is then referenced as a P2P or a NuGet package, like I then ultimately bundle it and bring it back in again, what is that experience like? It sucks, basically. So we need to make that better. We need to make it great. We need to make sure the editor is really good. We need to make sure that the build pipeline works by default. We need to make sure pre-compilation is obvious and like does the right thing. Like it doesn't today. And like if you have your web project, you reference a P2P which contains Razor assets. How do you configure the web project to find those Razor assets? Like, I don't think it just works by default. I think you have to like do stuff. Like, so we need to go through that entire scenario and figure out how it should just work, because it turns out a lot of people do it. Like a hell of a lot of people do it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. Let me see. Sorry, I had one and it scrolled. Hisham asks, when shall we expect an alternative for Resix for localization?
Not from us at 2.1. So we had a prototype of a PO file, but it's a PO file, a PO file localization provider. I would very much like to do it. It's just not going to meet the bar. Like the reality is, we've just got much higher priority issues that we have to do. Yeah, I'd love to see. I know a lot of people want it. It enables a lot more scenarios that ResX can't support, like pluralization. Obviously, that requires new abstractions because our current abstractions don't support pluralization. But we did have a prototype of what that might look like an iPluralize string localizer, which would implement iString localizer and would have new APIs that supports passing in the extra parameters you need to do proper localized pluralized strings. And then you could use a PO file, which as a spec supports specifying all the different variants for different types of pluralization. It's just a lot of work, and as much as I'd love to do it, I just don't think it's going to meet the bar for 2.1. If it's something that a lot of community members would really like, that'd be a great opportunity for the community to sort of rally together and get something done. I know Orchard Core has something already that does a lot of this, so that might be an opportunity there as well. To try and port, or at least getting some of that stuff working outside of Orchard for apps that don't use Orchard.
Cool. Okay, Meher asks two questions. One is, how much faster is ASP.NET Core 2.0 than Node.js and Go? I know we were talking just about.
Don't answer those questions. Just look at the benchmarks and answer them yourself, or write your own app doing whatever it is that you're trying to measure in one and the other, and then measure it yourself.
Cool. All right, and then this other question: what makes Kestrel ready for Edge and Edge-ready server? So there is that specific. There are, I tried looking for a public or thing that listed out all the options that were added and all the I
don't think there's a public one.
Because basically what we did was there's a lot of like timeouts and all these sorts of
limits and timeouts.
Okay.
Yeah, it basically it's limits and time. It's not just that. We worked with, we did a what do you call it? We had a security vendor work with us to do a bunch of threat analysis and those type of things as well, and we cleaned up a lot of stuff as a result of that. But the big thing that's public facing is the limits and the timeouts that you talked about, and then we set those by default in 2.0, so that out of the box we set them to values that we think are good enough to at least, if you do run on an Edge server, we will support you, not tell you to go and jump.
Okay.
Yeah. So as to what those limits are, I think there's obviously they should be documented if they're not. I mean, a lot of stuff isn't yet in 2.0 because it's still early. But there was an issue that listed them, but I don't think it was public. I think it was in one of the private repos.
You can look at the diff on on the files. But
yeah, I mean that sucks. Obviously, what we should do is get a blog post done at the bare minimum, because we can get that spun around pretty quickly, or get a doc written quickly that talks about configuring limits and timeouts in Kestrel 2.0.
We should make Barry write that probably.
He's not here, so we can make him write that.
Right. Okay. Cool. Let me see. Okay, question for WCF web services in .NET Core. Is it good enough for production?
The client, they mean? It all depends on what you're using.
Tooling for WCF web services. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. The only thing that I can think of that they're referring to is the WCF service connector for .NET Core that shows up as a connected service in VS, which then allows you to like from inside your .NET Core application point at a WCF endpoint and basically generate you a client and do all that type of stuff. It only supports a couple of features, basically. I think it supports the net TCP binding and the basic HTTP binding. It doesn't support all of the stuff that most people want.
Right.
And so they have a separate repo. You should go and give your feedback on that repo, the WCF team that manages that client, so that you can help them prioritize what client features in WCF to support specifically on .NET Core, so that you can build ASP.NET Core apps that run on .NET Core that talk to your existing WCF services with the required, WS whatever that you need and bindings.
Great. Okay. Let me see. Nick Craver asks, new CS project support for ASP.NET MVC5 applications.
Yeah, no idea. I haven't heard anything about it. That would be... The fact I haven't heard anything about it makes me think that it hasn't been prioritized, but that doesn't mean I haven't been here for 5 weeks. So that's a question for the MS Build team and the web tooling team, probably.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Miroslav asks if there's any plans to turn Blazor into an actual product.
Blazor? No plan. There's no plans. There's continued investigation and investment. So right now, the truth is that we will continue to... we're not going to just put it in the back burner and forget about it. We're going to continue to keep sort of being involved in the WebAssembly investigations. Like, it's kind of in the investigate phase, right? Right now, and it still is. We can't afford to forget about it because it's one of those technologies that has the potential just to turn around quickly, because a competitor turns up and does something amazing, and then we get caught flat-footed. Or the WebAssembly group goes off and builds a whole bunch of stuff that we're not involved in, and then we have to react later on because it becomes a thing. So we're going to continue sort of poking at it and investigating it. We're talking to customers about it right now, actually. So Dan, who has been on here a bunch of times, is doing a bunch of customer meetings this week to talk about what it would mean to support something like Blazor with real customers who build apps using all types of different SPA and non-SPA and all types of stuff, so we can get a better understanding of what that kind of looks like in the marketplace and in our customers' use cases and all that type of stuff. So yeah, we're still in the investigation phase and prototyping phase.
Cool. All right. Question you've never heard before. Question on when the .NET Core version of SignalR is coming along. So that,
if all goes well, we will have an alpha available in the next few days. So actually, let's be bold. By this time next week, when we do the stand-up next week, hopefully, that's bold. Hopefully, I'm being bold. There will be an Alpha 1 available of SignalR for .NET Core that will run on ASP.NET Core 2. So assuming you've updated, and then of course Fowler has IM'd me right now and said, no, we need to do testing. So I spoke to the team yesterday. And they had originally planned to do it this week and then said, no, we probably need to push it to next week, which is why I'm telling you this, because I got it from the team. But now Fowler is literally IMing me right now because he must be watching this somewhere and saying, no, we need to do some testing. So take the average of those two then. So maybe not this time next week, but the week after that, after they do some testing of the alpha. Now, we don't really do alphas anymore. We do previews because this is an out-of-band release. Like, this will just be a package that you pull in and put on your 2.0 RTM ASP.NET Core project. Will have no support whatsoever. Like, it's literally a very early alpha build of SignalR Core, but it should support the basic shape that you're familiar with in SignalR. So your stock ticker sample should work and those type of things. And
well, Nick's comments, testing, schmesting, and I kind of agree. So I've already contacted marketing, and the big campaign's going out. Shipping next week. You heard it here first.
Right.
All right. Cool. That's really about it. Question-wise.
Wow, that was easy.
Yeah. Hooray.
148 people watching, and I've got no more information for them. That's. I just thought there'd be all this type of. That's good. So, we have. It seems like a lot of people are installing .NET Core 2, which is great. We're seeing some good questions. We're seeing good install rates. I'm not seeing an awful lot of bugs being reported yet, which makes me feel like most people are in the tire kicking phase, or we just did an amazing job and there are no bugs. I don't believe that. In fact, for a fact, I know that there is one particularly bad bug that I found when I was teaching the workshop in Sydney, John. So if you recall, John, when we originally created the data for that, David had written a
oh gosh, yeah, he just like wrote a bunch of JavaScript.
Right.
JavaScript.
So we basically scaffolded and seeded the database with C# code that we generated from JavaScript inside the Chrome console, right?
Right. Nice.
So when we built the schema for that,
the worst thing was I was like, oh great, David, can I see the code? And he's like, oh, I deleted it.
No, I deleted it.
I was done. I was done. I did it. I was done.
We got on the plane and could delete it. So the problem is that the schema uses date-time offset, right? So like when we did the EF models, we use date-time offset for session start, session end, right? Because date-time offset is what you're supposed to use now. That's kind of like what we recommend when you're using date times in .NET, right? So everyone agrees that's kind of a well-known thing. So it turns out that in ASP.NET Core 2.0, in MVC specifically, we unfortunately regressed our support of date-time offset when it comes to HTML generation, right? So when you have a tag helper and you say input ASP4, and you point it, or you have the HTML helper equivalent, and you point it at a property on your model that is date-time offset. We now render that using first of all, we set the type of the input field to datetime-local, which is what the browsers support to get the nice date picker, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the -local bit is important, though, because that kind of suggests that there's no support for the concept of isn't local time. And we didn't differentiate rendering datetime-local between datetime offset versus datetime. So what happens is if you have a datetime offset property, its current value actually has an offset. So it says it's this time and it's in offset like 7, right? Which is Oslo, which is where we created all the data to begin with, because we were in Oslo. Then you render it into a browser, and when you send the string back down to the browser in this value, you're now using an RFC date format string that does not include the offset. Because it can't, because we need to give it to the browser in a format that it can use to render the thing. So what happens? You hit save without touching any of the fields. We send that value back to the server. It doesn't include the offset. We detect it as dirty because the original value didn't have it. We bind it and we truncate, and you lose your offset from the original value. So I found this because my time zone on my laptop was back to Seattle. I had updated all the data for Australia. I ran the app and everything was fine. And then I did the edit form and I didn't change anything. I just hit save. And then the session changed from being the first session of the day to being the last. And I'm like, but the time didn't change. It still said 9 o'clock. But it was being sorted last. And it was because the offset got lost. And so now it was in UTC, which meant it was well before all the other times which were offset to Australian time. Damn. So that bug exists. Yeah. Repo. So if you're being hit by that, please go on, find that issue and let us know, because we need to make a decision about how impactful that issue is, and thus we know when we have to fix it. That's the only one I know of so far that's like pretty bad in terms of like, oh, you upgrade to 2.0 and if you were doing this particular thing, it causes really bad problems for you. Yeah, and there's a workaround. Like you can just work around it by manually setting the type of the input field from datetime, rather than having us imply that it's datetime local, you can just set it to text and then it'll do the old behavior. So you can work around it. But please let us know if you're impacted by that. Other than that, I don't know of any. So please, more people use it, port your apps, report any issues that you have on the appropriate repo so we can assess them and get them fixed.
Cool.
Yeah.
Scott's still there.
I'm here. I'm chilling. I'm looking at questions. I'm looking at Twitter.
Nothing?
And Hunter has texted me, don't be sad.
That's because he thinks that you're going to give him the SNES now. So he's
no, I have to because it's my boss. Let's try the zoom out.
Ooh, I may have a surprise for you today. You ready? You locked me on?
Hang on. Let me lock. Hang on.
Tell me when you're ready.
Locked.
Okay, here we go. Engaging. We might need a longer jingle because the dramatic zoom out is so dramatic. It's so much more dramatic now.
What's happening here? Okay, so what is this? How is this possible?
I have a different camera.
Where did you get it? You know all the answers to these questions.
It appeared on my desk while I was away. Honest truth. There was a box on my desk.
This is a Logitech Meetup. that is being loaned to us. We did not buy it because we have no budget.
No.
This has been loaned to us by our friends at Logitech because we like to try their stuff out. Show us the what you got there with your Engage, your captain's log button there.
Oh, so
Hold
the
that up.
remote is really nifty. So this is the remote.
Okay. Ooh.
And it's flat and sturdy. So it's designed to actually like, go down on the desk. Like
compared to the one that you had before, it's just double wide.
So this is the one that comes with the previous camera that we usually use,
Yeah, it's
which is just like a
evocative
normal
of the
remote.
previous
It's
one.
plasticky and you lose it. This one is designed just that you sit it on the desk, so it looks more permanent. We also have an extension microphone, which is an optional piece. Like it does have a microphone array built into the top, but I've plugged in the extension microphone. Now I'm not using that because we're doing a broadcast. I'm using the Yeti Blue here, which is a much better.
Why don't you turn off? Why don't you switch off the Yeti?
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. Let me switch to the microphone on the actual device, and I'll take my headphones off. So I'm going to change. I'm going to do it right now. So I'm changing right now to that.
No, you're quiet. We can't hear you. Are you muted?
How's that?
There you go. Okay.
So now I am using the speakers from the camera. It has like a large, it's about this big. It's actually quite a large device.
Right. It's meant to be, the use case isn't webcam for random people.
No.
The use case is make a small meeting room.
Yeah, come into a room, plug in a single USB cable, and then it goes like that. So like it has a puck microphone in the middle, which is optional, but we have, and it has a button on it to mute the room. It has a 4K camera, so it's a 4K sensor on a gimbal, so it does left, right, up, down. And then what we haven't figured out yet is the zoom function. Is it using the fact that it's a 4K camera to do zoom, right, because it's just so much bigger, or does it also have optical zoom? The lens looks very beefy, so I would be surprised if it's not, and it looks like it has that nested sort of lens thing, so I'd be surprised if it's not optical zoom, but we haven't got a definitive answer on that yet. We're going to ask them.
Okay.
So someone says it doesn't sound too bad, like, because previously we had tried using the various conference mics. Like I have a Jabra conference mic in here, which is what MSAV put in this room. I have the conference mic system from the other Logitech camera we used to use, and we always found that they were too echoey when we did this talk, right? This is using the new one, and I'd be interested. I don't know if it sounds. Yeah, so someone said there is more echo, which is why I usually.
Oh, so clearly it sounds like a conference. It doesn't sound like, as the gentleman here is saying, all things considered, it doesn't sound that bad.
Yeah, exactly. So so it's pretty good. And then, as I said, this remote has some advanced features which I haven't figured out yet. It has a home button which returns the camera to the default position, obviously. So I can hit that button now, and it'll just zoom out.
Here, do this for me. You've got a whiteboard right there.
That was the first thing I said
on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna. Do you want me to? I'll go over to it.
You've got a 170-degree field of view, which is non-trivial given the big square room that you're in here.
Right. So I could do this now, for example.
Sure.
Right. And I could come over here, and you tell me, like, I guess I'll write some words at various at size. So if I do like, I'm assuming you can read that.
Yeah, I say it's a little bit small.
Okay, so maybe if I did.
It's more about the thickness. Yeah, that's totally readable. It's the thickness and the crappiness of the pen. Microsoft, for some reason, when a dry erase pen enters the building, it immediately is dry.
There's some dry air here of some sort.
Yeah, it sucks it out. It sucks the life out as you're going upstairs.
Yeah, but like for lines and boxes.
It's to encourage you to buy a Surface Hub.
The people are asking.
Yeah, but if I do lines and boxes, like I'm assuming you can kind of.
Well, and if you remember, we used to run the Cisco Umi, and you and I have done. This is probably
dude, Cisco Umi.
Yeah, I know it was the
what
best.
A tragedy.
It would be good if it came out today. You and I have tested. This is probably our 12th camera.
Yep. But not even kidding.
Millions of dollars and man hours expended.
People want to know, though, if the primary use case has been handled. Is there a dramatic zoom out macro button?
So there are two buttons on here, 1 and 2, that look like you can settable soft key.
Make a preset.
I don't know how to set them.
Go to that position and hold the button down.
You think?
That is the only way.
It's like a car seat.
It's a long.
Let me do this. Let's get the optimal, like, normal position, like when I'm just sitting here talking.
That's optimal. That's home.
So I'm going to hold down 1.
Hold down 1. Beep.
Oh, it made a sound. Did you hear that?
That was me.
No, it actually did make a sound. like literally over the top of you going beep. It went, and then I will zoom out.
I know it was really
magical.
realistic, John. I know it was.
Yeah, it fooled me.
So if I zoom out now,
Okay, this is 2.
and then I will hold down 2. Now listen.
Beep. This is because of the reason that I know how to do this is because of my advanced experience with clock radio telephones and other things I have to
So
set the
I'm
time
going
on.
to hit number 1 now. You ready?
Okay.
So I hit number 1, and nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Do I have to hold down number 1? Oh, hold it down.
And, okay,
And
pull
then-
that. Okay, so do the dramatic zoom out
It's so dramatic.
macro.
Oh, I touched it. No, it does work. I hit number 2, and it just zoomed out.
Dramatic. Little fast.
Yeah. I hit 1 again. Does it zoom in? Yeah, there you go. It does work.
Oh, so you could have 2 be like go to the whiteboard.
Yes.
Now, can you program in the song? Can
We
you
need-
program it to play the actual song?
Dramatic zoom out. It's
need
so
to get-
dramatic.
We need to get budget for this.
How much is it? How much is this? How much would you pay for this device?
Well, Damien, it turns out it looks like it's about $800, $900.
It's a lot cheaper than their previous kit that we were trying.
Right.
out.
It's meant for small businesses, so hopefully people will give us one for free.
But
Now,
as
wait-
Nick just said, it has a dramatic zoom out button. Like, we have influenced the zeitgeist.
Clearly. Oh, wait a second now. Someone is saying 2K with the mics. Are there mics?
Yeah, so as I said, there's an optional external puck mic. Let me zoom out
Oh,
again.
is it on?
Hang on.
Now, wait, I missed something because I'm not paying any attention to you
This
people.
thing here.
You got to turn off your lower third, brother.
Oh, crap, Ola. Let me just do this.
So
So wait, he has this. Is this a loaner?
it's
Yes.
a loaner. It's a loaner. So it says here $899, and someone else saying 2K. Well, where'd you get the 2K from?
Yeah, I know, because I can't imagine the mic.
Oh,
is
expansion
$1,100.
microphone ready. Optional microphones. The puck
Right,
is
so let me
optional.
turn off my lower third. This is the puck mic. that you
Tap
can
on it.
put- Oh, goodness.
Now, wait a second. When you turn the lower third off, did it change the screen?
I'm wondering, because I can't go any lower. Let me
It
zoom
looks
out.
like it clipped.
There we go.
There
That's
it
the
is.
puck mic. All right.
Oh.
And it has a mute button. It's
And
like
you can't get it closer to your head, though.
it's capacitive.
You
I mean,
can't get it-
I wired it that way. It's not designed to go right in your mouth. It's designed to go in the middle of the table.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if the laptop cover is affecting the. Don't close it. You're on.
I'm not going to close it. So is that any better? Does that sound different?
Yeah,
when I do that?
that sounds clearer because the air is going straight over the thing.
And if I do that, is it any different?
Feels more echoey.
Okay. I'll trust your discerning ears.
I do not know.
Yeah.
What do I know?
What do you know, indeed?
Yeah.
But yeah, like John and I, some people
Double
join-
click the Hangout. Double
What's
click
it?
on the Hangout.
What's that? Huh? What?
Double click on yourself on the Hangout.
Double click to make it bigger, right?
Saying if you double click the Hangout, it changes the ratio.
Wait,
You're double clicking on the center square of yourself.
what? That didn't do anything.
I'm
Didn't
double
do
clicking
anything for me.
on you,
It just flashes all over the place.
and it goes full screen or it changes the ratio.
So all I can do is when I click on myself, it puts me in the middle, but I think it's only for me, not the whole stream. Is that true?
Oh, okay.
I think only you can lock us to a. I have no idea.
I need to go or something.
Oh,
You
I need
can
to
go,
go.
John?
Too. That's fine.
All right.
Whatever. Forget you.
So let me push the button. Oh, hang on. Let me push number 1 first.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, that's so cool.
It is
Right?
pretty cool. I appreciate that.
Here we go. Here we go. Dramatic. It's so dramatic.